Localization as necessary.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tales from the Forlorn Dopes. I am your host, Cybersmily.
I am Wisdom000, and yeah, we have a great episode today again.
Yeah, I think we're going to forego our usually rants of what's in the media and Cyberpunk news to really introduce our wonderful guest, Mr. Benjamin Wright.
Hello there.
Hello.
Benjamin is just prolific in the Cyberpunk franchise. He wrote and edited just countless books. So for everybody joining in, this is a real treat.
It is.
Oh, shucks.
So we really appreciate the time. So first off, I would just want to we're trying a new format with all our guests. Is we're going to have a bunch of questions, quick surveys, give a quick answer to these questions. There is no wrong or right answer except for one of the questions. So hopefully you'll score the right answer on those. So first question. 2020, 2045, or 2077?
I mean 2020 for me.
Okay. What's your favorite role?
It's the toss-up between Netrunner and Fixer.
Okay. Favorite cyberware?
Yeah. Favorite cyberware is probably maybe the hand with the switchable fingers.
Nice.
Oh, yeah, I believe that.
Yeah. Favorite weapon?
Favorite weapon is probably the old Sternmeyer M95.
Nice.
And that's a beauty.
I have a feeling I know what this answer is going to be. Favorite Cyberpunk read or 2020 book? Includes the ones you've written. So
I was gonna say, I mean, I have the greatest fondness for Wildside since that's my book. But I mean, objectively speaking, I'd probably have to say like Chromebook 1, or maybe Chromebook 2, one of the early Chromebooks.
Least favorite Cyberpunk read or 2020 book?
I was really disappointed in Euro Tour.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, we can get into that further, but
we will.
For now, let's carry on.
Okay. Pan Am, Judy, or Rogue?
Oh, boy.
And I know you're not a player, but you've seen them, so hopefully.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I've seen them. I'd go with Rogue.
Lucy, Lucy, Rebecca, or Kiwi?
I mean, I've got to go with Lucy.
Okay. Carrie?
I hope that was the one I got wrong.
Yeah.
No, Lucy's really the best choice, I think, of that. Rebecca's cute and she's fun, but
What I'm dying to know is, are those battle gloves or are those cyber hands that are crazy big?
I mean, I can't imagine anyone would give themselves hands that wouldn't let them, perform everyday tasks or hold a gun. I don't know how she fires the shotgun.
Let's stay on subject.
There's no way.
Yeah, we're deviating.
All right.
Carrie, River, or Goro?
River.
Okay. David, Maine, or Pilar?
Got a soft spot for like the everyman protagonist. I got to go with David.
Okay. Favorite Night City gang?
Well, I could say the Bozos, and I think I'm going to go with the Bozos.
All right.
I knew you would say.
Favorite megacorp?
Does Raven Microcybe count as a megacorp?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Then that's who I'd say.
All right. Favorite cyberpunk movie?
I mean, Blade Runner is my favorite movie, period. So,
Amen.
Favorite cyberpunk fictional character? And this doesn't have to be 2020 or Red. It can be any fictional character.
That is a tall order. This is one I've never thought about. So I'm going to I'm just going to pull one out of my butt. The Dixie Flatline.
Okay, that's
Neuromancer.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That is not the answer I would have ever expected anyone to say, but that's a cool character.
Yes. Gibson, Dix, or Stevenson?
That's actually a really good question because they've all written books I've loved and books that I've found terminally boring. So
Yeah, and they all do it very, very differently.
they sure do. I have to go with Gibson.
Okay. Favorite cyberpunk novel?
Neuromancer. Although I have another novel that we have to talk about.
All right. Sounds
Not
good.
Okay.
Save it.
And the last question is Shadowrun Cyberpunk.
Shadowrun.
Is Shadowrun Cyberpunk? Yes, and it's Cyberpunk.
And you got it wrong, man. That was the only question you could have got right.
I knew you were going to. I knew you were going to tell me to say no, but it is Cyberpunk. It's just that it's also fantasy poured like some kind of gelatinous slime all over Cyberpunk.
It's cyberpunk adjacent.
Right. So,
I mean,
so if you have a
setting is
salad
wrong
that's
for
swimming
2020.
in dressing, is it salad or is it dressing soup? My opinion, it's dressing soup.
Look, I have no great love for Shadowrun. I mean, I think it's you can't deny that it's been successful and long lived.
Very
and
true.
People like it, but I would say yes, it's cyberpunk, but it's cyberpunk and it's cyberpunk. It's not diluted. It's oversaturated. It's like cyberpunk is enough already. You don't need.
Well, I see it differently. I see it Dungeons and Dragons and right.
Fair point. That is a good point. That's an interesting way of putting it.
Because
I may be a little biased.
Yeah, and I have friends, gamer friends, who will not play anything that does not have fantasy races. Like, and I always call them like the game has to have elves or dragons or something.
Shadowrun provides the crutch that those guys need to get into science fiction.
Yes, I actually, it's interesting. This reminds me of two different things. One is I may be a little bit biased about whether it's cyberpunk or not, because one of the better times that I had was back in college. I ran a bunch of my friends through a Shadowrun supplement where I pulled out all of the fantasy elements and changed them to Cyberpunk 2020 elements.
Nice.
So there's a dragon that shows up, and I just replaced it with an AV4 that was firing incendiary grenades.
Nice.
As much crap as we give Shadowrun, the truth is that there were great concepts in there. The art was fantastic. Hell, they had Tim Truman working for them.
Yeah.
But
my only problem with Shadowrun is
dragons and
blah, blah, overshadowed Cyberpunk, right?
I feel the same way. I hate that it did that.
Yeah, once you add magic into that setting, it takes away the edge.
Yeah, it makes it pointless.
Yeah.
So,
But this is the thing about fantasy, is that I feel like fantasy has a powerful appeal because it's more liberated.
Yeah, you can do anything.
yep.
Exactly, you can do anything, and plus, especially in like, medieval old school fantasy, not set in a modern city, it's like you can get away with so much more. Law enforcement is so like spotty and inconsistent and bad, and it's so chaotic, and like you can kill someone and just dump the body in the forest and nobody will ever know. Like, it's a lot easier to do just about anything, and you can do
Fantasy is the cheat code for any morality tale you want to tell.
for sure.
So I just want to have our listeners and viewers and anyone who pays attention to us, just to give Ben his credit, as it were. He is known to be an article writer for Solo Fortune 2. He did the layout for Eurosos Plus. He did rewrites and additions to Edgerunner Incorporated. You were editor writer for Firestorm, both books.
Both books.
You did the layout for Land of the Free. You were writer contributor to Listen Up, You Primitive Screwheads. You were a playtester for Maximum Metal. You were a commentary for Neo Tribes. Not sure what kind of credit that is, but we'll get into that.
I'm not sure either. We'll figure it out.
You did the layout for Pac Ram.
Okay, well, go ahead.
You did
the layout for Pac Ram.
Yep,
yes.
The layout for Rough Guide to the UK. You were one of the writers for Wildside.
Primary writer. I mean,
Yep. You were a writer for the Chromebooks. You were
one of them,
a writer for Bartmos's Brain Blowout. And you did work on Bubblegum Crisis and the Mecton books.
Very true.
There
may be a couple other Cyberpunk books on there. I'd probably. I would basically say that, from sort of the period of Wildside and Land of the Free onward, I was heavily involved in just about every Cyberpunk project.
Okay.
Yeah, your contributions to the franchise are just uncountable. They're prolific. You had the inside track.
I mean, it happened. It was very lucky, and I look back very fondly on that work, and I'm pretty proud of it.
And I have to say that, so my top 3 Cyberpunk books outside of the main book, right, are Night City source book.
Sure, definitely.
Wildside, which you were a writer on, and Listen Up, You Primitive Screwhead. So you were like part of the top 2 of my top 3 list. So I'm very honored to talk to you about today. So
well, the honor is mine, but thank you.
Okay, I gotta know, who was Eric Bull? He's listed as the writer alongside with Ross on Neo Tribes, and I've never seen his name appear anywhere else.
Bohm, B-O, was it L-M-E?
Yeah.
That's not Ed Bolmy, is it?
Probably.
Okay. If it's Ed Bolmy, I know exactly who it is. Oh God.
Is Ed Bolmy the creator of Wright? Or am I thinking of someone else?
Gosh, Raish Bartmoss is a tricky fellow. I think he maybe. Ed Bolmy is a real good writer, a real nice guy, a real character. I'm still friends with him on Facebook and stuff. And yeah, I think if my memory serves me right, I don't have any of my books right in front of me; they're in the other room.
I'm probably going to be making a big apology here in just a moment. Go ahead.
Gosh, we spent a lot of time, me and Ed and a bunch of other people, Talsorian people, at the Safe House for when we were going to the Gen Cons over there, back when it was in Wisconsin, in Milwaukee. Do you guys know the Safe House?
No.
No, enlighten us.
Okay, I'll start with this. So, when I started at Telsorian, even before I started at Telsorian, I went to Gen Cons and hung out with them and stuff. And that was when it was back in Milwaukee.
Okay, now it's time. Let me just interrupt you really quick.
Sure.
Here comes my giant apology. It wasn't Eric. It wasn't Eric Balmy that worked on Neo Tribes. I actually am, or Ed. I actually know who Ed is. I apologize, Ed. I'm so very sorry. Eric Oppen was, but we'll get back to that.
Eric Oppen. Okay, I don't know who the hell that is. Did you ask Spike?
Yeah, he was like, I don't know who that is either. Like, you wrote the book with him. How do you not know?
I thought Spike wrote pretty much that whole book, but
I mean, I think he did too. I don't know who. Like, I've never seen Eric Oppen appear anywhere else. I don't know who the hell that is. I'd like to.
Well, when we talk to Derek Quintanar or Mike, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, or Ackerman or somebody.
It could be just a it could be just a pen name for someone else, but I'm not sure.
That's what I'm believing, is that it's somebody's pen name.
So,
I thought maybe it was yours, to be honest.
No, I spoke with Spike about Land of the Free quite a bit, but I wasn't. That's one of the few books I didn't really have a lot of like formative writing in.
Okay.
But yeah, okay. So let me just get back to this.
Yeah.
So
Safe House.
So some of your listeners will probably know about this. In Milwaukee, there is this fantastic bar called the Safe House, and it is a spy-themed bar.
Ooh.
Yeah, and it has all sorts of great stuff. To get in, you have to go and give the password to the bouncer. And
I've never wanted to go to a bar more in my life.
it is a great place. You are in a little room with like bookcases and a mirror, and this bouncer who interrogates you. And if you don't have the password, the bouncer basically humiliates you for a while in front of the line of people who are waiting behind you until you finally get to go in. The freaking bookcase slides and there's a secret door and you go into the bar.
So it's like an old speakeasy type thing.
Yeah, and inside they have like James Bond and Matt Helm and all this other like spy stuff. And it's fantastic. They have a drink called the Spy's Demise. They have all sorts of gimmicky things in the place. There's a secret exit where if you go into a phone booth in the back and punch in a code, the back of the phone booth will open and you go through a little alley and come out on a different block. It's the coolest place.
That's
naturally
more fun than Disneyland.
It is terrific, and naturally, when Gen Con was happening in Milwaukee, lots of game people would descend on the Safe House because I mean, it's perfect for people like us. And in that place, I had lots of great time drinking and laughing with the Talsorian guys, people from other companies like DreamPod 9, fellow freelancers like Ed Bolmy and Spike and all sorts of people. Great time, wonderful memories, so many wacky jokes and lines that come out of that. Ugh.
Again, Ed, I am so sorry. I apologize so profusely.
He's coming for you.
Yeah.
I'll never get him on my friends list now.
We'll track him down. So Ben, how did you first get into tabletop role-playing games?
I played original D&D back in like grade school or middle school with my friends. We were little kids and we'd play it, and obviously we didn't pay a heck of a lot of attention to the rules. In fact, we were like nerds and dweebs and dorks and geeks, so we weren't like all that in the gym class. So what we would do is I went to school in New York City. That's where I grew up, and our school didn't have a track of its own. So if you wanted to go run laps on the track, we all had to kind of troop down to Riverside Drive. And there was a park there, and we could run laps on the track, and that's where there's a baseball field and stuff. And in our sweatshirts, we'd carry D20s, and we'd actually be speak playing D&D to each other on our way to and from the track or the baseball diamond. And you just reach inside your pocket and put your thumb on a side of the D20, take the D20 out and look at it, and you're like, oh, you got a 14, and we'd even do it when we were in the outfield. People
really?
Standing in the outfield shouting, okay, the trap is disarmed, what do you do next?
Yeah, I've played Dungeons & Dragons many years, and again, this was back when I was a kid, and we would play anywhere, right?
Yeah.
I've never heard that type of system, and that's ingenious. To be
that truly
put
is.
Your thumb, you just put it in your pocket, put your thumb on a number, and just pull it out, and that's the number you got. Because we would just roll on sidewalks or dirt or wherever we could, just throw the die. But
I wish I'd thought of that when I was trying to run games on long car trips.
Oh yeah, definitely.
People rolling on the dash and dying.
And I've been on car trips where we played games, and we would roll the dice on the book that we had in the hand, and hopefully it didn't fall off. Oh man,
that sounds like a comedy sketch right there.
It's all good until the guy driving has to roll dice. Then it gets really hairy really fast.
Oh god.
Well, what we had done is the driver would be okay. He would just throw it in the cup holder and be tell me what it rolled.
Oh, smart. That's good.
Yeah.
I like that.
So, and granted, he had stick shift, so it was as he's shifting, throws the die, and what I get? All right. And of course, he was the GM too, so it's listen.
Oh my god!
Pay attention to the road.
Jeez, that's hazardous, man.
I need pop-o-matic bubbles for D20s and D10s.
Yeah, but when you're a teenager, life was just, it'll continue.
Every moment you can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, Pop-O-Matic D20 actually. That probably exists. On Etsy, if not anywhere else, I'm sure.
Probably.
Yeah.
So, how old were you when you got involved with the R. Talsorian group? And how did that come about?
Well, let's see here. So, I grew up in New York City. I lived there until I was, about 23, 24. But San Francisco always was kind of important in my life because my Uncle Bill lived out here. So, that's where I live now, is San Francisco. So, my parents, when I was a kid, we'd take trips out here every now and then. And especially back in the 70s and the 80s, the West Coast got a lot more Japanese anime goodies than the East Coast did. So whenever we were here, I'm sorry?
Try the Midwest. I lived in Kansas City at the time, and getting it was difficult.
Oh, God, yeah, I would imagine so. Yeah. So, whenever we were here, I would hit the local toy stores and comic stores and things, and sort of grab random anime related toys and books and things that I didn't even know what the heck they were. I was just this is super cool. Yeah. And one of those times in this comic shop was a copy of Mekton. It was Mekton First Edition, not the white box, but First Edition Mekton. Okay. And I was holy crap, a role-playing game about Japanese giant robots. I am so into this. And so I got it, played it with my friends, absolutely loved it. So Talsorian was on my radar when Cyberpunk came out. And the 2013 edition came out in what, 88, 89?
Late 88, early 89, I think.
Okay, so that's right when I was going to college.
I remember seeing the ad for Cyberpunk, the original black box in America.
That probably, because Mike and some other people know a lot of the people who created Viz and did Animerica and stuff like that. There was like this Animag, if you know that magazine, that was made by... Yeah, it was made by sort of a combination of like people who went on to be Talsorian people, and people who went on to be...
Animag was it. Yeah, that's the magazine I'm thinking of.
That's the one, and the people who worked on Animag either like were Talsorian people or Viz Media people, and so that's the way that worked. So I played it in college. I started playing it in college with my friends, and we just had a freaking blast with Cyberpunk. It was like, because I already liked the genre, but when the game came out, that was when I was like, I'm going all in on Cyberpunk. I'm going to read every Cyberpunk book I can find. I'm going to watch every Cyberpunk movie I can find.
That's how I was introduced to both the genre, like giving the genre a name, and it was anime that got me into the whole thing. Like you, I got introduced. I went to friends. They were going to the Kansas City Art Institute, and they introduced me to Cyberpunk, and I was like, "Holy shit! This is the anime that I love in game form." I immediately went out and bought every book I could find.
Nice.
Yeah, I was actually introduced. So I think I'm around your age, Ben, which there's some gray hairs there.
A few, yeah.
A few. So I forget if I was a junior or a senior, but I had friends who were older, and they joined the service, and they came back, and we had a sub base where in my state, so it was like an hour and a half away. So my friend who joined the Navy brought his friend, and that friend actually introduced me into Cyberpunk and basically our gaming group into 2013. And just it was an eye-opener, because it was D&D, Traveler, Paranoia, just all the fantasy crazy games. And then this game was like, oh yeah, your girlfriend's cheating on you. What are you gonna do to the guy she's seeing? and just that level of detail was like, wow, this is something new, and it made it more exciting because you could relate a lot more. Oh yeah, my girlfriend's cheating on me, right? I can understand that. Oh, I'm going to a techno bar with. So yeah, that kind of what introduced me into Cyberpunk, and then all of us kind of like broke up because again we were at college age, so everyone fled. But when we started coming back home, right, that's when we got back together and really got into Cyberpunk 2020 and started our journey with that.
Will, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm getting a bit of static from your mic.
Probably. I have. I cannot stop it, but I will put myself on mute when I'm not talking.
Oh, it seems like it cleared up. So.
Yeah, I think it's how I position the mic. So I have a 3D printer in the background that's on pause for a 100-hour run. So. And it's 50 hours in, so I just want to pause it, and I don't want to turn it off, So,
yeah, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a long job.
Yeah.
What are you printing, a house?
Kinda.
It's like none of your business.
Well, I have a Cyberpunk 2020 game I'm running. We're doing Deep Space, so I'm running a High Rider game. So nice. I found these tiles for space corridors and other space things and I'm just printing out all those dungeon tiles for my players so they can like position and basically do 3D battle maps, right?
Fun.
Nice.
So, and I have a 3D printer, so yeah, one of those hobby
Clearly.
things. Again, apologies if the static is too much.
It's not too bad.
No, it keeps coming and going, but it's fine.
Yeah,
Like I can still hear you clearly.
I think it's just how I position the mic, right? So
Yeah.
hopefully, if I point it away from the printer as opposed to directly at the printer, it should work, right?
I mean, you sound clear now, so whatever you're
Yeah,
doing.
no, it's all great.
Yeah. So okay, so I guess that's how I got involved in Cyberpunk as a player and a fan.
Okay. Are you still
Yeah,
doing role-playing games today, or?
I am. I haven't played a lot of Cyberpunk lately because I've been working on I've been tinkering with my own thing, which is not a Cyberpunk game, but I still love the material and everything, and I keep my eye out.
Still tinkering with your own game? Is it sci-fi, fantasy, horror?
It is sci-fi. It is sci-fi. It's a little bit top secret, so I don't want to say a lot about it. I will say, in relation to like keeping my eye out for like cyberpunk stuff, there are a few other products by other companies that I've like mined for ideas. I think probably every gamer does this. It's like everybody buys GURPS supplements and then doesn't play GURPS, but it's just like their supplements are such
That's so very true.
right. They're so full of so much good stuff. There's one of the things that, relating back to the Shadowrun question, one of the things that I notice is that most of the, at least sort of first wave of cyberpunk imitators, things like Earth Cybertech Sourcebook and Cyberspace from ICE and Shadowrun and others, is that they all were basically the same as Talsorian's Cyberpunk. You know, the names may have been different, but it's like the same kind of setup exactly.
They've all got the insidious Japanese, mega corporation. They've all
and
the
it's all
wastelands and
and the same kind of setup. It's like a big urban city with a lot of mega corporations rolling it, and edgerunners or whatever you want to call them, freelancers running around doing their thing, which is I guess default, but it's kind of default because Talsorian set the default. But there are some cyberpunk game supplements out there that I thought were really original and innovative and like had really great ideas. And the two that stand out are, there was a book for the Tristat system called Ex Machina, and
that was a good one.
And it's got like 4 different settings. Each one's a radically different cyberpunk setting, and I appreciated that because they're fresh ideas. And another one is this game for the Amazing Engine called Chromosome. Chromosome starting with a K, and it's like a biotech cyberpunk setting, and it has a lot of really different ideas about society and the structure of like how things work. So for anybody who's looking for like new material to sort of like spice up their Cyberpunk 2020 games or 2045 games, or whatever else, those are a couple that over the years have come across my radar as really worthwhile.
Okay, I'm not familiar with Chromosome. I need to check that out.
Nobody's familiar with Chromosome. It was it came and it went.
It's one of those blips.
Yeah, but it deserved more recognition. I can't speak to the Amazing Engine as a system, but the fluff in that book was just.
I mean, really, for me, in most of those books, the only reason I ever get them is for the fluff.
Precisely. Yeah, I've got tons of different Cyberpunk game books, but have I played those games? No, I'm just, looked at them and gone, ooh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I know before we started, we were talking, and I know you're not much of a computer gamer.
Right.
So I know you haven't been exposed to 2077, and you know of it, right? But you've never played it. I have to advocate that, to me, it's definitely worth a check out. I enjoyed it.
Like, story-wise, it's one of my top 3 games of all time.
Yes.
Nice.
And also, as a Cyberpunk 2020 person, they didn't encompass all of 2020 as a game system, but I think they captured a lot of the aesthetics that you and the rest of that crew kind of portrayed within the books.
The best thing about it is you can walk and drive around Night City.
Yeah.
That's just amazing to me.
I agree. I mean, I've certainly done a lot of looking into it. I've watched a ton of YouTube videos, like playthroughs of the game, like kind of cinematic movie version presentation of the game, people talking about the different weapons and the cyberware and the characters. I mean, it is insane to look at YouTube and see how many lore videos there are where they're saying, well, if you dig back into the Chromebooks, you'll learn blah 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 blah. And I'm like,
yeah.
Or even some of them, they're getting it wrong. I was watching another video.
They get a lot wrong.
In which they're talking about Rach Bartmos and the Rabbids. And it's like, Rach unleashed the Rabbids before he died. And it's like, no, they were on a dead man switch.
Precisely.
The reason why they were released was he died. And there's like, he was taken out because he had a date or something. I'm like, no, there was an artillery strike on his freaking house
on
to
his
take
fridge.
him out. Yeah. So I don't know where you're getting your lore from. If you're getting your lore from the game, and that was the other thing that I think a lot of the people who post the lore are strictly 2077 and don't listen to Mike or anyone else from Altar Story. And it's like, you believe what Johnny says, you're an idiot. Johnny,
that's for sure.
Johnny is a program. Is a
facsimile
of the person he was, and he's been in that computer system for God knows how long. Who knows what corrupted data has entered his system, and it was taken from a dead brain.
Everything he tells you is from his own ridiculously inflated ego.
That too.
Just to make him the superstar of any given situation.
So I've seen a lot of lore things that was like, wow. I mean, just even doing preliminary research. But, you are one of the sources, as it were, for the lore. So I'm glad we have you on to clarify anything, any questions when it comes to lore.
Well, I'm looking forward to that. I did just realize that one of my credits that didn't get mentioned is I did a bunch of art for some of the books.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did tons of illustrations. Maybe not tons, but several. And the only artwork of mine that kind of seeped into the video game, and only kind of, is the Militech Crusher pistol shotgun. That's one that
my favorite weapon. The Poseidon Gong.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. That's what it is.
Honestly, you including that weapon in the original Chromebook as a very, very close homage to the Poseidon Gong. That's what sold me on the line.
Wow. Well, the anime influence was showing, and I wrote that and I drew it, so
so you drew all the best weapon illustrations in the Chromebooks.
I don't know about the best, but I certainly did some of them. I could go through them, but I did some artwork for them. I drew the full Borgs, at least in Chromebook 2. So the wingman and the Dragoon, yeah.
Well, I didn't realize this, but apparently you are one of my 3 favorite artists that ever worked for Art Talsorian. So,
Oh, shucks. Thank you.
Jesus Christ. If you weren't talented enough before, you just got to blow that shit out of the water.
I'm sorry.
I mean, you, Mike Jackson, and Chris Hockabout, like, you 3, like, are what sold me on Cyberpunk.
Yeah, those guys are real good. They're way better than me.
Okay.
Those guys are amazing.
So now that I know that you are the the artist for the full Borgs, that leads me to the question of, did you create Atom Smasher before or after you drew the Samson?
After. Because the Samson... Actually, it's interesting. I was thinking about the previous question that you'd asked. What's your least favorite 2020 book? I could have also said Maximum Metal, because me and my friends in college were working really hard on the full Borgs, because there hadn't been anything like them before in the game. Like
even though they show up in the art, because you see Briaribus from Appleseed, which is my favorite manga of all time.
And Appleseed is godlike. I wish we could get a decent anime adaptation of it, but we never really have.
Jesus, we never have.
They've come close.
We've either gotten good story and bad animation, or fantastic animation and like they didn't even read the manga.
Yeah, exactly. You're exactly right. And then when they de-blacked Briarios, I was like, come on.
Yeah, like, dude, what the hell? But yeah, Appleseed and Xenon the Heavy Metal Warrior, those were the books I was reading that when I discovered Cyberpunk, I was like, holy shit.
Oh, I love Xenon. Yeah, that's good stuff. So with the full Borgs, like, this was an idea that I don't remember if me and my friends like pitched the idea of full Borgs, or if Derek said to us, do you guys want to do full Borgs? But however it happened, we did them. And it wasn't that long after Chromebook 2 came out, or maybe it was even before Chromebook 2 came out? I don't remember. But Maximum Metal came out really close to that.
Maximum Metal came out after.
Okay.
Or at least I bought it after.
Okay. But the thing was, we had like worked really hard on the full Borgs to make them like extreme, but not unprecedented.
Right.
And then, so it was like when we put like the Dragoon in there, like, okay, this is like the most awful thing you're going to run into. And then Maximum Metal comes out, and it's like, oh, here are these things that are like a gajillion times tougher and more formidable. And I'm like, wait, so an exosuit that you wear is going to be more formidable than like a hollow exosuit is going to be tougher than a not hollow full Borg. I remember we were all a little sort of hurt, me and my friends, Mike and Jeff. Yeah, because we had no idea that Maximum Metal was in the works.
Oh, yeah.
We were never told. So,
I mean, for me, it all comes back to Appleseed. So you want your full conversion cyborgs, and you want your powered armor.
I mean, it fits. It fits, but I mean, think about this. If you've got a powered armor that fits a person inside it, and it's really tough, presumably you could have a full Borg who
inside it.
who's in, right, but like make that whole thing, but integrate the full Borg into it. It would be even tougher because it doesn't have hollow spaces with meat inside it. But we didn't even know that was an option. Like, the toughest thing in the game up to that point basically was an AV4.
Well,
and
just a quick research. Supposedly, Maximum Metal came out in '93, and Chrome 2 came out in '92.
Okay, they were close to each other, though. I know
close,
that much.
Yeah. So I'm sure it was like, here's a bunch of our stuff, and then you didn't know because they were still working on it. And I know timelines with books can be crazy. And then it seemed like our Talsorian had various artists or various writers doing various things at the same time and in parallel. And I don't think there was a lot of communication between the various groups. But from my understanding, that was like a game industry type of thing. Even like Dungeons and Dragons with TSR and Wizards.
See, and
they would have
that's weird
various
to me
groups doing their own thing.
I always got the impression that the Artalsorian crew was a much closer knit group. Finding out there was little communication between the staffs working on the various books.
You don't know.
It's kind of an eye opener.
Well, if you think about, and you know, Ben, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but with different writers and different products, right? Like even with like, especially with the source books, like Rough Guide to the UK, Eurosource, Pac Rim. Those were authors. When you look at the authors and the writers, they've never written for any other books, right? So I think there's for those books, they really do seem like they were completely removed from everything that was going on. So, and again, you know, there's timelines and work and process, at least from an outsider. I don't know this for fact, right? So this is just all my opinion. When you're looking at products, at least from a publisher point of view, it's you want to produce as many products as you want in a given year. And I think Artalsorian, you guys were like producing 3 to 4 products or books every year for every X amount of years, right? So there was always like it seemed, at least from a production, right, a product line, I'm going to sign this person to this. And I think like Derek and Dave and Mike probably had the better scheme or understanding of what things were going on. But, you know, whether or not he introduced like to your group who was college kids who were just producing shit, which was, and again, the whole Chromebook, from my understanding, was just like a conglomeration of various people coming in and contributing to this, versus Maximum Metal, which was, hey, we're going to solidify vehicle rules, we're going to solidify this ACPA rules, etc. And
military
whether or not there was, and whether or not there was a crossover, that's kind of from an editor's point of view, should I have a crossover or not? You know.
Well, that's exactly right. I think I'll my take on it is, you know, for us working on the full Borgs, we felt really hurt because it was like, you know, we had tried to keep these things in line with everything that had come before and everything that was out there. Because like nothing up until that point had like an armor SP of higher than 40, I think. And so that's, I think we gave the Dragoon that. I may have the number wrong, but you know, we tried to make it like, okay, this is as tough as the toughest thing you've seen. And then stuff in Maximum Metal completely blew that out of the water. In fairness, that wasn't a mission assigned to us by Derek, was the line editor at the time. Because I think Mike was he was either working on developing Cyber Generation or Castle Falkenstein. I don't remember which.
I think at the time it probably would have been Falkenstein.
Okay.
Falkenstein.
But he, so Derek was in charge of that. And, you know, I don't think Derek did anything wrong. Derek didn't think that it was an issue. He's like, well, this is a military book and this is a, you know, cybernetics book. And he didn't know that we were like looking at the entirety of the game and trying to strike this balance.
Right.
if he had known that, I'm sure he would have said, well, we got this thing coming out that completely opens up the high end of things.
Right.
If we had known that, we would have done things a little differently.
But I think even with like a squad of dragoons versus a squad of ACPAs, that's a tough call, right? Yes,
Probably.
ACPAs can definitely do plenty of
I mean,
damage,
dragoons move
but the way the dragoons
so much
move,
faster.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
tight corners that they can get into, especially in a city fight, it's very hard to say, because keep in mind, you take off an ACPA's leg, the pilot is going to be in mortal condition and probably bleeding out.
True.
Versus a dragoon is like, oh, I lost my leg. All right, let me keep on fighting.
True. That's absolutely true.
I'm gonna hop after.
So I've always viewed Borgs as okay. You have
Borgs
body
are always
armor, that's
inherently
great.
more dangerous too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Because-
It was a matter of balance. It was, or not necessarily balance, but we didn't know that things with 40 SP were even like
Possible.
something that could be in the game, and then all of a sudden they are. So we're like, oh, these things that we thought were the toughest thing in the game that we made aren't. No harm done is just, kind of a little like shock of cold water for us. But yeah, it was definitely, Derek clearly didn't think that it was an issue, probably because we didn't say anything about it. So I don't think we did anything wrong.
Right.
And Dave Ackerman was like the production manager of the company and the art director, so he wasn't going to be the one to bring up that kind of thing. And Mike, like I said, his thing was pretty much always he was working on the next game, like core game.
Yeah.
So he wasn't super involved in the day-to-day of like the nitty-gritty of stuff like that.
Cool.
But yeah, so I made the artwork for the Samson, and the me and my friends have put together these rules for full Borgs, and then for I guess Solo 2, I don't really know exactly where the basic idea came from, but I just wanted to have an article written from the point of view of like a full Borg cyber psycho.
And that's where Adam Smasher.
Yeah, Adam Smasher is like, that's where he came from. It was just sort of a one-off gag. It was like, okay, here's an article written by a totally unhinged robot man who likes to kill, like
By
the
the way,
worst.
I love that article.
Thank
There
you.
are some hilarious quotes from that article.
Thanks. It was really supposed to be like kind of like satirical and ridiculous. Yeah, I wrote that he had a Samson, and then they had some terrific artwork. That people, a couple of different art pieces.
Art Talsorian was actually the. I was
Sorry?
just gonna say that the first they were the first RPG group that I ever saw that the art was consistent. Like if this was an AB4, this was what an AB4 looked like. If this was a Samson bot, this is what a Samson looked like. Like it maintained that across most of the books.
I'd credit Dave Ackerman with that. He's a very good art director. He really has a good eye, and he's a good artist himself. I think he drew some things in a couple of the books, but I'm trying to remember what. I know he did one thing, or maybe two. He did two pieces for a Mekton book. He did some things for some of the Cyberpunk books, but I can't remember what right now. But yeah, that was Dave's influence.
So
Awesome.
my question was, out of because I know you're credited as an article writer for Solo of Fortune 2, was that the only article you wrote? Was the Adam Smasher one?
That is a good question. I'm trying to remember. I don't think it was the only thing I did for Solo 2. I'm actually going to take a look at Solo 2 and see.
Destroy All Flesh is the article name.
Yes.
What a good title.
Oh, that was a silly article. That was very fun. looking for Solo Fortune 2. I'm going to look at the TOC and see what else is there. And you know that Spike on the cover of Solo Fortune 2.
Yes.
We grilled him about that. I've been giving him crap about that for years.
Well, we also were wondering because he was the model for the cover, which of course is Morgan Blackhand. Apparently,
Yeah.
both covers of Solo Fortune. So our question to him was like, "Oh, so you're the player / creator of Morgan Blackhand?" He's like, "No, that's Mike. But you are the creator of Atom Smasher." Is I think one thing that I think our listeners.
Yeah, he revealed that information to us, and it was very shocking.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun with Spike. He's a real hoot. And yeah, he was super game to do that. The gun he's using, if I remember right, wait, let me look at the cover. Yeah, that's a toy gun that belongs to me. It's from a Japanese live action hero show called Blue SWAT. And
that's fucking awesome.
The name of the gun.
We asked him about that, and he was like, "I don't know."
It's called a BW01 Dictator, and that's from this show Blue SWAT, and I still have that toy. It's super cool. It's motorized. It can like pop out the little cartridges and stuff.
Man, that's awesome. All this time, when looking at it, I thought it was like from a Japanese light gun game, but no, that's much cooler.
It's a really cool gun design. It's got this weird sort of like round crystal feature on it that is, very like authentic, but other than that, it rules. Looking at Solo 2, there's this section on Walking Steel, the Cyberwalks.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I wrote that and I did the artwork for that.
Very cool.
Yeah, and I remember there was a review of Solo 2, and it specifically called out the artwork for the Panzerkraken as being good, but it misattributed it. It said I don't remember who, but it said such and such did an amazing job drawing this Cyberwalk, and I'm like, God damn it, that was me who drew it.
I tried to like finding out that you're the one who did the full conversion and the weapon drawings for the Chromebooks. Like, I've been trying to piece together who does the art for what. Well, since I first got into the books.
Sure, I get it.
It's really, it was all up in the air for me, with the exception of Chris Hawkabout because of Interface.
Yeah. Good magazine, Interface.
Oh, it was fantastic. But it was all up in the air because none of the individual art is credited.
Yes.
So it wasn't until like the age of the internet when I started following the various artists, and they'd post their work from that time that I was like, oh, okay, that's who did that.
Yeah, it's sometimes tricky to nail down. I think I also did this Recoil article that's in Solo 2.
I
think that's me, if I remember correctly. Might have been Craig Shealy, because that's very much like, his wheelhouse. But I think it was me. Walking Steel was certainly me. And maybe some other things. I'd have to dig through a little bit more. But I think the maximum firepower weapon expansion, electrothermal propellant, electrothermal artillery, follow-up missiles, railguns. No, I think that was probably Craig Shealy, but it might have been me.
So.
Yeah. Oh, and the Sandpiper, I rode that bike. Yeah, I there's a bunch of these things that did. Yeah. Yeah, it's a cool bike. I like it too.
So, how did you get the nickname Guru?
Well, my favorite band is Pop Will Eat Itself, which is a British band who were big in the 90s and late 80s.
I haven't heard that in a while.
Yeah, most Americans haven't heard of them. They were bigger in Europe. They're a British band. They're still around, but they only have one of their original members left. Their most prominent member, Clint Mansell, went on to do a lot of Hollywood soundtracks and scores. He did most of Darren Aronofsky's movies, most famously Requiem for a Dream, and
Nice.
he did the soundtrack for the. Yeah, he did the soundtrack for the first Dune movie, and yeah, if you look him up, his credits are very impressive. And the guy's a musical genius. Like, once he left the band, Populate itself wasn't what it once was. But anyway, one of the songs off their debut album is called Grebo Guru, and a grebo is like a British term for like a grungy kind of punk. And so Grebo Guru was like the handle I used on the internet, and I still do, like, to this day.
I see.
So yeah, so right, yeah, it's right there. So Guru was sort of, you know, a fragment of that, and I think my first Cyberpunk character, who was a techie, was named Grebo, nickname Guru, last name Frockbender. Yeah, I think that was my first Cyberpunk character, because I played before I ran it.
Yeah, as you do.
Exactly. So yeah, so that's how that happened. And I mean, I don't claim to be a guru of anything, but I like the way it sounds, and, you know, I like the band. So there you are.
Cool. So you mentioned that Atom Smasher was basically made as a pun specifically for Solo Fortune 2, but did you actually create him as a character? Did you just, or was it just like a fictitious author that you tried to produce for Solo Fortune?
Yeah, no, he wasn't a character who appeared in any of my games. He was purely conceived as, like, sort of a cautionary tale. It's like, because while cyber psychos get mentioned in the game, you don't really see much about them. Like,
No, there are no real examples.
and that was one of the things I thought was so super interesting about the Edgerunners anime, is that they really latched onto it. They were like, oh, this is interesting, let's play with this. And they didn't necessarily do what I imagined cyber psychosis as being like, but it was still really cool. But I felt like, I remember it was like, well, let's hear from a cyber psycho. Let's see how bad it is. And so that was why I did it. But then when Firestorm was being conceived, Mike was like looking for a bad guy to oppose Johnny and Morgan. And the thing about Cyberpunk is that, you know, it's not black and white. There aren't really, you know, there aren't very many characters you can point to easily and say that is a villain. You know,
Yeah.
you can say there are guys who, you know, you can look at the guys who run the corporations and stuff, but there just wasn't really much of a rogues gallery in Cyberpunk. So Atom Smasher was just sort of like the one who stood out as being like really, really evil.
I mean, it doesn't help that Cyberpunk is such a deadly system that when you do encounter the big bad guy, he usually doesn't leave the battlefield alive.
Yeah, it's either he dies or you die. I mean, there's not much
Right.
in between. Yeah, absolutely. And so I, you know, when I created him, I was like, I didn't know this guy was going to be like, you know, a top billing type of character. And,
Well,
you know,
top
naturally,
villain not
when he
only
showed up,
for Firestorm, but top villain for Edgerunners.
Yeah, he's the big
as
baddie in the
well
video
as
game.
2077.
and
Yeah, your guy is huge.
yeah, he's the big villain in the anime and the freaking video game. It's crazy. He doesn't look like he used to, but that's fine. You know, it's been decades.
There's a prequel cinematic where he looks more like a Samson.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
Wow.
it takes place in a flashback, and it's not quite exact because you know, video games, but He does look more like a Samson in that, as opposed to what they're calling his later appearance is like a modified Dragoon. I don't know. I would call it that, but
I mean, I get the basic idea of what they're going for there. It's fine. I remember when 2077 was being worked on. Mike and I were talking about it a little, and he asked me to look over the timeline for getting from 2020 to 2077, and my recommendation to him was to just reboot, to just basically make 2077 be what 2020 is.
That's what I said to him.
Right? I was like, just start the timeline at 2030
Stretch it out.
and just stretch it out like 2 years for 1 year, and boom. And he didn't like that idea. So instead, the timeline for 2077 basically does backflips to advance everything and then undo it all so that 2077 is basically 2020 again.
Right.
And I don't know what influenced that decision, but it's not my game. He can do what he wants.
Yeah, so we won't get too much into that.
No, but it was just a quirky thing that I found sort of notable. But those guys at CD Projekt Red did an amazing job on the game, and the visual design is incredible. It's personally not, again, much like the anime, it's not exactly what I would have envisioned for a lot of the stuff in the game, but it's certainly really good and really works, and obviously has gone over very well.
Yeah, and I think that plays into anybody, especially like Cyberpunk players, right? Whether they're 2020 Red, you definitely build out a vision of your universe and how the universe works. And when someone takes it over or sees a different version of it, how close is that to your ideas of it? And for me, edgerunners in 2077 definitely don't fit my game, right? But they definitely fit with, yes, I can see that happening with this genre and with this game system and the lore that I was provided with. And it's very close, right? And that's the one thing I like about at least Cyberpunk is, and I think of it like a kind of like a shotgun, right? You have the wide double-barreled blunderbuss dispersion, which can be crazy all over the place, or you can have the longer barrel concentrated shot, which, hey, yes, there's some variance, but you're kind of on target, right? You're definitely closer to my vision than someone else, right? When it comes to the whole thing. And again, artists are going to take their ideas and present them as they need to. And I find both CD Projekt Red and Project Trigger, they definitely capture a lot of the stuff that I wanted to see in Cyberpunk.
Oh yeah.
When you get into the devil and the details, that's I wouldn't have done it this way. I would have done it this way, but you guys got the general concept, and that's what I loved about both the Edgerunner system, or the Edgerunner anime, and the game system.
Yes.
So you have seen Edgerunner, and so you've kind of given your kind of little bits of opinions of it. Do you want to give your full opinion of it, or?
Yeah, what's it like seeing the character you created feature so prominently in the most popular anime of the year?
I was floored. I mean, first of all, I was floored from the beginning, because it starts out and it's like Cyberpunk Edgerunners, and then Mike Pondsmith's name is huge on the screen, they're created by Mike Pondsmith, and I'm like, how the hell did you swing that? You don't see that on Halo or Starship Troopers. You know, you watch like the Starship Troopers anime, it doesn't say huge name, Robert Heinlein, right in your face. Right? Starship Troopers? Heinlein? I'm not crazy, am I?
Yeah, that's Heinlein.
Okay, phew. Boy, I would have had to cut up my geek card if I'd gotten that wrong. So I was already like, oh my god, just seeing that. And then, you know, towards the end, when Smasher shows up, I was like, no way, come on, no way. And then there he is. I'm like, good God, come on, really? Wow. And then, you know, I was like, geez, so this dude I created is like the Darth Vader of the franchise. I freaking he or maybe Kylo Ren would be a better example, because Kylo Ren kills off all the main characters from the original Star Wars.
Kylo Ren is a far lesser example of who Adam Smasher versus Darth Vader.
I mean, fair enough. Thank you. I mean, Kylo Ren was more effective than Darth Vader, but Vader's always going to be the cooler character.
Listen, you're from the original trilogy. You're not. You're not.
I'm from the original trilogy. I like the sequels. I mean, I don't.
The sequels are fine, but what I'm saying is Ben is the original trilogy, right?
Fair enough. I'll take a Ridge Tridge.
Cyberpunk 2077 and Edgerunners are the second, and granted they're doing a great job at it, but they are the second trilogy. Or third trilogy. Whichever you prefer.
Yeah. The sequels, I get it, yeah.
Because the second trilogy, and that's 1 through 3 versus episode 4, right? So.
I saw a great...
An original prequel and sequel. That's just...
There was a guy, a cosplayer at a convention, a Comic-Con that I went to, and he was dressed as Anakin Skywalker. And this guy was funny. He was holding up a sign, and it said, "Reasons to hate sand." So this is, of course, it's a prequels joke, and it's like, you know, dry, coarse, gets everywhere, whatever else that moronic sort of ramble that Anakin Skywalker made was. But the best part is that his little sign with the list of reasons went 4, 5, 6, and then 1 for his list of reasons. And I was like, why is the list out of order? He said, because that's how you count Star Wars movies.
Awesome.
I was like, okay, nicely played. Well done. Anyway, talk about a divergence.
Yes, and then that's
So-
what it's all about.
One of the weirdest things to come out about Adam Smasher is, like, the fans of the video game and the anime, they keep trying to, I keep seeing this, is they keep trying to, like, well, in his early days, he must have been a good guy, like Anakin Skywalker. And they keep trying to make him friendly.
What?
Yeah, no, I've seen it like a dozen times now on various Reddits and Facebook posts.
Wow.
Jesus, dude. Like, that guy is pure psychopathy from start to finish.
Yeah,
So,
I mean,
as the creator, give us the lowdown on his early days before he got turned into a cyborg and how he got turned into a cyborg. You can just make it up if you want. I don't care. That shit to bed.
I mean, the idea is, no, he was always a horrible guy. He grew up really poor, and he ran with boosters, or I guess this would have been before there even were boosters, right? But he grew up, you know, in the gangs, and he was already a violent criminal before he ever got borged up. He was a mercenary, I think.
That's
He was a guy who basically had no redeeming qualities, except that he was good at killing people and liked to kill people. So when he got blown up, you know, and almost killed, and was literally backpacked out of the battle he got blown up in, and they said, "Hey, you want to work for an evil security corporation and be like a killer robot?" He's like, "Hell yeah!" So this is not a guy who has any kind of redemption arc within him, or any kind of once he was a decent dude. I mean, maybe when he was a little child, like maybe,
Maybe. When he wasn't like setting puppies on fire and
I mean, he probably was like killing kittens when he was a kid. Like, this is a guy who has just always been bad. And I guess if you wanted to delve deeper into him, perhaps part of the reason that he could go cyber psycho and still function in any regard is because he was always a homicidal maniac. Like, going cyber psycho wasn't a huge change for him.
yeah, he was already psycho. They just threw the cyber on the front of it.
Yeah, like, I was kind of surprised in Edgerunners how comparatively sane he seemed. But I guess if you're going to have this be an enduring character at some point, you have to sort of have him not be just a Tasmanian devil of bullets.
So, as part of the Red lore, at some point, Atom Smasher gets a secondary body that looks like a blonde Elvis and becomes Michiko Arasaka's lover.
Were you
aware of
involved?
that?
This is news to me.
And this was
Okay.
before Red, right? So I remember Mike, again, this was, so I used to go to a convention up in Massachusetts. Mike used to actually run some games. But he also mentioned that apparently Atom Smasher dated Michiko, the granddaughter of Saburo, for a time.
Which is just about the creepiest thing ever. I
It is
can't
pretty
imagine
creepy.
how that could possibly. I don't want to imagine how that works and what that would look like. Just no.
I mean, my concept was that he finds I mean, the article is called "Destroy All Flesh." He's not a fan of flesh. The idea that he would get a backup body that imitates human flesh and engage in sexual activity is against the conception I had for him. But I mean, I don't own the character.
Yeah.
Right.
Anything one wants can
It
happen.
just like what's wrong with her head that that's who she goes for.
Well,
And-
I think that's probably the reason that it was done. Is it's like to demonstrate how screwball she is, how messed up, how depraved. She is.
Absolutely.
And that's a great way to do that. I can only imagine that this must have been something forced on him. Like, we own you, and this is what we want to do. So this is what you're doing. And he probably hated it.
That's a good take. That makes so much more sense.
Well,
Although his very first line in the video game is as
I
a
remember he's like, "Oh, you look like a tasty slice of meat or something." Like he's gonna be
fuckable
flying.
piece of meat.
Yes,
That's the quote.
that was.
And
But I also
I cringed so fucking hard. Like my skin crawled so badly when he said that. I was like, oh my god.
Oh yeah. But I at least personally, I didn't interpret that as being like literal. It's just like he's thinking like, well, what's the thing that'll freak someone out the most?
Yeah,
can I
no, because he's a psycho. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think he wanted to do anything. I think he just wanted to like creep her the fuck out.
well,
Yeah.
I mean, reading that the Solar Fortune 2 article, you definitely can see him saying that when
Oh yeah.
if anybody's coming in.
100%. Yeah,
The fact
I'm
that his
surprised that's not his battle cry.
Yeah, the fact that the first thing out of his mouth is something about meat is perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's funny. I haven't, as I've probably made clear, I haven't delved into Red very much, mostly because I love 2020 and I don't particularly feel the need for, a different version. And personally, this is just my opinion. I don't have any insights at all. I don't really understand why the role-playing game is set in 2045 instead of 2077. Like,
we
seems
haven't.
odd.
From what we could gather, it's like a rights thing.
Okay, well that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, CDPR, because of the video game and the tie-ins they want to do. They're like, they made a deal with Artalsorian that they could have it up until
2066,
2060.
2065, somewhere.
And then after that, it becomes what CDPR wants to do with it. So there's not a conflict.
But there's also communication and giving back between the two teams to make sure, hey, this is we're singing everything.
Yeah.
Right.
So
they didn't want to step on each other's toes.
right. So we're planting seeds for this. CDPR, where were you going to go with this? Oh, we weren't even thinking of this, So
that's interesting. That makes sense.
So it's definitely given and take between that. Yeah. So speaking of all these iconic characters, is there any other iconic characters that you played that's in the various books or in the various systems, or even came up with those character concepts?
I think my Netrunner werewolf his name is dropped in a book or two.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I always love that name, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, it actually wound up being used by a writer who I really like, who wrote Ghost Rider 2099, Marvel title from the 90s. For anyone who likes
the 29 series.
The 2099 series is good. Read Ghost Rider 2099. It's only like... You have?
Oh, yeah. No, I read all those books. Dune 2099 is where I first was introduced to Warren Ellis.
Warren Ellis, yeah. Well, the fellow who wrote Ghost Rider 2099 is really under... I feel terrible that I'm forgetting his name right now.
I can't remember it either.
I'm friends with him on Facebook, for gosh sakes. Anyway, it's like so arch cyberpunk, and he drops reference upon reference upon reference upon reference into that comic. And I had already come up with the name Werewolf for my character before a character named Werewolf showed up in that comic, and was in fact a literal cyborg werewolf. But people want a good cyberpunk read. Ghost Rider 2099. That show's off the hook.
Spider-Man 2099 was obviously the gold standard of the 2099 series, but I loved all of them. I even liked Ravage 2099.
yeah. And Punisher 2099 had some art by Liam Sharp, who went on to be a really big name. He's done Wonder Woman.
Dude, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Actually, my favorite Liam Sharp stuff was his Punisher stuff, his regular Punisher stuff.
His Punisher stuff was good. I really liked his Death's Head 2 stuff. That was pretty.
That was fantastic too.
Yeah. But anyway, this is all sort of a deviation. Other than Werewolf, there's probably been mention of a couple of other characters. I think actually, yes, Dr. Corvus Crow, who is the head of Raven Microcybe.
Okay, that's very cool to know.
He was a guy who I first used in a convention adventure that I ran, which was essentially sort of at the time it was based on New Jack City, but now people would say it was based on the Dread movie. A gang takes over an apartment building, and the characters have to kind of get in there and get rid of these guys.
That's what I did with Slaughterhouse in my combat zone.
Nice. Yeah, that's perfect. But yeah, the idea was that that in this adventure that I ran at a convention, it was a Raven Microcybe facility that had been, scuttled, but local boosters had taken it over before it could be completely emptied and shut down. So they had access to sort of cutting edge cyber tech that Raven had been doing. I think Dr. Crow. There's a recording from him that's passed on to the player characters.
That's very cool.
Yeah, that was
So
fun.
my question is, did you have a NPC called Pookie?
No, what?
Pookie.
From
It's
New
Chris
Jack
Rock's from New Jack City.
Oh, damn! I should have. Damn. I remember him very well, but I'd forgotten his name was Pookie. Oh, thank you for reminding me. Yeah,
That's essential cyberpunk inspiration right there.
absolutely. That movie is a great, like, almost cyberpunk movie.
Although the best interpretation of the combat zone I had seen up until that point was actually Death Wish 3.
Yeah. Canon Films really delivers on the combat zone vibes.
Really, you don't think Escape from New York City?
Escape from New York is a good example.
I mean, yeah, that's a
RoboCop.
great one too. Yeah, RoboCop.
Yeah.
But like the violence of just everyday everything in Death Wish 3 was just so ridiculously over.
The movie's crazy. Is that the one where he like blows the guy up with the bazooka?
It is, and it's the one where he sets the trap where the dude crawls in through the window and it smacks him, and they come in and like, what is that? And it's like, it's teeth stuck in the board.
Right. Oh God. So brutal. I'm trying to think if there's any other characters that I might have worked in there. I know that stuff from my games did work in there. I think the DDI prayerware device that is,
Yes.
I think that's from a convention tournament that me and my friends ran. I went to the University of Rochester in upstate New York, and U of R had a role-playing game club called the SGA, for Simulated Gaming Association, or Simulation Gaming Association. And each year the SGA would put on a role-playing game like convention at the school. And so we were, me and my friends were doing Cyberpunk, so we decided to run a Cyberpunk tournament where the first round the players would be doing street level jobs for people who they didn't know were executives at DDI, Digital Divinity Incorporated. And then the people who we, awarded the winner of each session gathered together to play in the second session, where it was all in a corporate boardroom, and they all played executives at DDI, and it was like a total no combat, just like persuasion, intimidation, detect lies, corporate machinations game.
Oh, that sounds perfect.
It was really fun, and that was actually where I met Mike Pondsmith, because my friends and I had, we were playing Cyberpunk and we loved it and everything. And one of my friends was either Mike or Jeff. Mike, my co-writer on Wildside, and
Okay.
Jeff, our mutual friend. One of them said, we should pitch some ideas to this company. Like, we're coming up with all this stuff for it all the time, and we love it, and we can write, and we can like do computer graphics, and we can draw. So we put together a sample page from a quote sharper image catalog for 2020, and mailed that to them and said, hey, this is the kind of stuff we can do. And coincidentally, Tal Sorian was working on the first Chromebook at the time. So yeah, it was just
timing.
it is exactly what it was. It was just lucky timing. So that's how we wound up doing freelance work for them.
It's funny that you mentioned the DDI prayerware. One, that always seemed so like it always seemed like it came straight from Judge Dredd.
Yeah.
It actually shows up in a form in the video game as like automated prayer booths.
Yeah, I was going to mention
Nice.
that. So it's
Oh,
like
cool.
this little like video game console in which you go up and you spend like 5 EB to basically, clean your soul for all your wrongdoings.
Terrific. I love it.
and there's like a little waiting thing, like, okay, we're judging you. Oh, you're free. All your sins have been absolved.
Other than just getting to walk around Night City, that's really my favorite part of the game, are all the little references to everything that came before. They're just scattered everywhere.
That's great. I love that. That's really terrific. That's good to know. I mean, this is what I miss out by not playing the game, but I have so many time-consuming, expensive hobbies already. It's crazy.
Well, make time.
Yeah, really.
It's really a fantastic game.
I guess I have to.
Now, the mechanics leave a lot to be desired.
Yeah.
Like that's my biggest complaint, is the mechanics and being locked first person. Those two things.
Well, I mean,
I like first person, so don't. me and Wisdom have different opinions of the game, but
indeed,
That's fair. I figure, eventually, I wouldn't be surprised if they released some kind of update where you could do like third person or something.
They've done mods for that.
Yeah, there's mods for PCs for that.
Nice.
I'm a console player, so I don't get any of that good stuff.
Yeah, I've only got a PS4, so I'm and what have I used it for? Playing like the most low poly, simple games you can think of.
That's okay. All I play is GTA. So.
Hey, whatever floats your boat, whatever helps you sleep at night.
Exactly.
So, if you want to keep on rambling, we can ramble. I have another question, but it's up to you, man.
Well, I'll complete my ramble, and then please hit me with another question.
Again, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No. Good gosh. It's just that this convention game that we ran is what, sort of wound up being how I wound up working at Talsorian, like as an employee, because it was from that we got the idea to invite Mike to the game convention that the college, gaming club ran each year, because we were, in contact with him and with the others at Talsorian, and we were running these Cyberpunk, tournaments. So we were like, how cool would it be if we could get Mike to come? And he said yes. Again, through just dumb luck, he was like at a point where he was feeling really burnt out and needed a change of pace. And he thought, going and hanging out like with some college kids in their dorm and at their little con sounds super. Like, I need a break. This sounds perfect. So he said yes. So he came. And that's how we met him. We hung out with him and we got along with him. And that's what led to, us going to Gen Con and being part of their crew. And it's, how I got in close enough with Talsorian to eventually get hired and work there for, from 94 to 98. I think it was like the very first day of 94 until the company closed up for a while in 98.
Yeah. So that's what I'm hearing from various people, like even Ross, you, even some of the recent guys, on how they like got into Talsorian and started dealing with Cyberpunk. It was like, oh yeah, I met Mike at like a gaming convention and we hit it off, and I gave him a bunch of ideas, and he's like, oh yeah, come work for me. I'm like,
yeah, that's him.
And that's, of course, from my point of view, yeah, I had this site for years that I've created, and I've never been able, I don't know if it's just a fanboy thing, in which kind of prevented me from like taking that extra step of like, yeah, he's too busy, he's got too many things, I don't want to like throw ideas at him on my craziness. Because that's the other thing with like gaming conventions, is you meet a lot of interesting people with a lot of interesting ideas, and you often think,
dude,
the guys who run these companies are constantly bombarded by these people. It's like, I'm not going to overload him with my crazy ideas on what you can do with a system, right?
Yeah, I mean, Mike's a much bigger rock star now than he was then.
True,
of course.
Sure.
He was a bigger fish. He was a big fish in a comparatively small pond. Now he's a moderate sized fish in a very big pond. Like, when he's playing games, like, with Matt Mercer and famous people, like, celebrity, I don't know who, but famous people. Yeah, but I mean, he's a pretty down to earth guy, very personable, very likable.
Oh, definitely. I've gamed with him several times at the convention in Massachusetts.
I've never gotten to meet him in person. I always hoped. Like, I've been writing for Datafortress2020 since 1996.
Yeah, man, that's like I'm sorry, that's like one of the most like legendary gaming sites there is, if you ask me.
Wow, thank you.
It's totally true. Come on.
Yeah, if you could see me now, I'm blushing pretty hard.
Oh, stop!
But, there was always that secret hope in the back of my head that it would somehow get me a job somewhere at Artalsorian. But apparently I just had to go to a convention or at some
Well, I think the problem is you put your stuff out there and you never started the communication and the talk up and pitch your stuff like, hey man, I want to come work for you, right?
Yeah, the only thing I ever actually pitched to Artalsorian was the first was Conflict Africa, and it was at a time when they were trying to when they were deep in putting out D3, and it just wasn't. They weren't wanting to support 2020 anymore. Is the impression that I got. I only ever talked to Lisa about it, but she was always very cordial and awesome.
Dude,
yeah, she's nice.
Just remember, your claim to fame is your site went down because Mike told CD PR to come check out your site, and they flooded your site to the point where they crashed it. So kudos.
I crashed it completely. I had to move to a different server altogether.
Oh my god, that's awesome, man.
It really was. Like, my ego went through the roof. Of course, my site was down for like 6 months after.
No. Well, these things happen.
Yeah. So, my next question is, what was your favorite book to work on while working on Artalsorian?
Well, while working, I mean, there was the time when I was a freelancer, and then there was the time that I actually worked there. When I was a freelancer, working on the Chromebooks was super fun. That was with a group of my friends. Wildside was really nice. It was me and my friend Mike, and we talked about it a lot. But eventually, I just went over to his house in New Jersey and stayed there with him for like 3 weeks, and all we did was write stuff. We would just talk about it, write stuff, write more stuff, compare notes, write, eat a little bit, write, sleep for a little while, repeat. It was just a marathon, and I have very fond memories of it. And when we were done, we were like, ugh! But it was done, and it got published. And sadly, I remember when the book came out, or when I saw it, because it was being laid out when I first went to work for the company full time. I remember being disappointed because the art was not up to snuff. There's one or two good pieces in that book, but most of the art in the book is Ben, I don't love it. Yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah,
I only concentrated on the writing in that book because the writing in that book just, to me, was amazing.
It's quintessential.
To me, that elevated what a role book should be, right? Explaining exactly, hey, this is what you can do with your special ability, and on top of that, introducing the street level, the strip, how you buy stuff, how you interact with people, and how it pertains not only to Night City, but also if you're going to go out off into the world, right? And how a fixer really works, because
The whole
the
contact system.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I agree with him completely. It's quintessential not just for Cyberpunk players, but anybody who's trying to run a dealer type character at all, like in any game, any system. Just the contact system, the description of life on the streets, like it's really must own.
And then the introduction of like the subclasses.
Yeah.
And hey, this is what this skill list would work for this particular person. And you got it from the base book, but I think, and that's what I see a lot within role-playing games, right? Is like, oh, here's an example of what you can do. And not a lot of people are very creative, right? And a lot of GMs just can't take the time. They don't have the time. It's not that they can't take the time. They just don't have the time to do everything for a campaign or for a game system, right?
Well, I mean,
and
Sure.
and providing the ability of like, hey, here's 20 subclasses of a career that you can easily slot in, and you saw it within Live and Direct, right? Of just, hey, this is how you change a career and how you create a sub career, right? And fit them in. Here's the skill category that would fit that type of role, right? And again, Fixer was kind of a very broad based, whereas you really concentrated on specifics. And to me, that was one of the quintessential role books that really took my ideas of, okay, this is what the game can evolve into.
I'm really glad to know that.
Before Wildside, fixers were one of those roles that were just ephemeral.
Yeah, that was why we wanted to do it. I mean, most people thought of fixers as being thieves.
Yeah, that was a large portion of the players, and the special ability was.
It's super vague.
It's super vague. And you tightened that up. You brought it in, and like, this is how this works.
Thanks. I mean, I think also part of the impetus for that is that one of the things, like, that sort of didn't always thrill me about Cyberpunk, which is a funny thing to say because everything about Cyberpunk thrilled me. But the game itself really quickly became like the gun nut game, and
I'm kind of guilty of that myself.
So am I. But at the same time, the elements of Cyberpunk, like the film noir type of stuff, and the street crime type of stuff, and the hustle and the wheeling and dealing didn't get as much attention as the weapons of war and the killing machines and the edge in terms of like how grimdark can you get. That I think we wanted to try and just focus, sort of emphasize, at least for a while, more of that, like, misty night and rain-slicked pavements and sort of like desperation. And I know it wasn't like the best-selling supplement for Cyberpunk. I mean, for any role-playing game, the one that has the most toys in it is going to be the one that sells the best, and
sure.
That's a Chromebook right there. But sort of focusing on the cool, the mirror shades, the nightclubs. Like that was something that just seemed like it hadn't gotten quite as much love as the cool ass guns.
Well, it definitely gets a love from us. We pimp out that book as often as possible.
Awesome. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Anytime we talk about, our favorite books, that's always in the top 5.
Oh, guys.
But like I said, it's in my top 3.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, up there with, Night City and Listen Up You Primitive Screwheads.
Yeah.
Those are just...
I mean, Night City, that book is astounding. I mean, I remember when I saw it, I was like, I have never seen anything like this. Admittedly, I haven't seen every role-playing game product ever made, but it blew my mind that it was so dense and detailed. What?
To this day, it's one of the best, city source book things that I've ever read. Like, it's up there with, like, Waterdeep or...
Yes. I was about to say the same thing. Like,
and
Waterdeep came afterwards, right?
Yeah, it's the only one that is like set in a modern futuristic type setting that comes anywhere close to that level of detail.
Yeah, truly amazing. I completely agree. I that map, holy cannoli! When I saw that unfolded, I was like, "This is unbelievable." I mean, Dave Ackerman once said that he thought the problem with Night City is that it's not cyberpunk enough. Like like his feeling was like, basically in its structure. Like if you look at it, especially the 2020 version. It's structured pretty much like a city today, which is not a mistake. It's based on San Francisco, very obviously.
Right. Yeah.
But
I mean, there's only so much you can put in a book.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, yeah, definitely. Like, while I think that it's a valid criticism, I think it's also a very small issue that's really easily sort of ignored.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's an incredible book. That's an absolutely incredible book. As far as the other part of the question, which was what book, when I worked at Talsorian, do I, feel best about? I mean, the one that I really, the ones that I put the most work into weren't for Cyberpunk. It was the Bubblegum Crisis game and Mechton Z.
I fucking love those books.
Me too. I love that anime. I love those books, and I was really heavily involved in both.
It's my favorite anime of all time. I mean, by far.
It's pretty great. It's not my favorite, but it's way high up there. My favorite is probably Megazone 2-3, but
I love Megazone 2-3. I like part 2 more than I like part 1 or 3.
Fair enough. Yeah, part 3 isn't very good.
No.
I gotta watch more anime.
Yeah, you do.
I've been telling you this for a while.
Me, Ghost in the Shell was just, to me, the epitome of cyberpunk. It's boring, and it's long, and there's...
Oh, it's okay.
You need to see Bubblegum Crisis, bro.
Bubblegum Crisis is great.
I've seen Bubblegum Crisis.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
like the original
80 Police Files?
Yeah. It doesn't get more
80
Cyberpunk.
Police Files was not only the best look at cyberpunk cops, even more so than RoboCop, but it was also the best look at cyberpsychosis up to that point.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. The manga, I don't know if you've ever seen the manga of 80 Police.
Absolutely.
That thing's great. It is so good. And of course, Bubblegum Crisis owes a lot to Streets of Fire, which to this day I adore as a movie. I was just telling somebody in the chat that it's the most perfect representation of what a Cyberpunk 2020 game, how that's supposed to look when it's being run. Like all the roles are present. Yeah.
And it always seemed to me to be the basis for how those roles were written in the game.
It may very well have been. I mean, I know Mike, saw the movie and liked it. The only thing it lacks is some futuristic cyberware and flying cars and stuff. Instead,
it is in another time and another place. So.
Precisely. And that's the thing about Cyberpunk. The original 2013 book, and then all the rest. I think the thing that was just so brilliant was, and I don't hear this mentioned very much, but I was struck from the first time I read it how brilliant it was that Mike put in that cyberware is fashionable.
Yeah.
Like, having a mechanical arm is stylish. Having a corporate logo in your eye is stylish. Like, that was beyond brilliant. Because, especially, I think, for anyone who's played the game, cyberware being not just a thing, but a prominent thing that people like, that's like I feel like that's almost like de rigueur for true cyberpunk now, but it wasn't before.
No, before that, any prosthetics you saw were always treated as these big, ugly things. The only time I ever saw cyberware treated as stylish in a movie up until that point was in Hardware.
Yep.
Oh,
And
Hardware, great movie.
And kind of a what's the name? Plug there. Circuitry Man. Yeah, it was also present in Circuitry Man.
I've
Oh,
yet to see
fun
that
movie. That movie's a
Oh,
hoot.
it's
It's
so
so
good.
weird. It's so freaking weird. It's really fun though. It's really fun. And the while we're talking about these movies, the other one that falls into this department for me is Nemesis.
Yes.
Oh, that's my favorite cyberpunk movie of all time.
Ding, ding, ding.
Runner of course.
I love that film.
You're pushing my buttons now, buddy.
Well, I think all of us share pretty much the same buttons.
Like that is my most watched. I can watch that anytime, anywhere. It's John Woo in a cyberpunk universe.
Right? Gotta love Albert Pune. That guy is a lunatic. I was looking into Olivier Gruner, who's the star of that movie, and because I don't really know much about him. He hasn't been in very many like.
He made several low budget films in the '90s, and then just kind of
Exactly. He's still around, but now he's like a bodyguard.
yeah.
And
Because he's a legitimate badass. I mean,
he is. He was in like
And-
he was in the French Foreign Legion or something. I don't know.
and I talked to Albert Pune once on a comic book forum, and I asked him like, why did you go so far off base with the sequels to Nemesis?
Yeah.
And he's all like, well, I just kind of got tired of casting, European kickboxers and everything.
That's funny. That's really funny. Well, I mean, he had Rutger Hauer in what was that? Omega Doom, which is
Doom.
basically a Nemesis movie. Yeah,
I mean, he's who we owe Jean-Claude Van Damme's entire career to.
so true. He just passed
Definitely
away very
has.
recently. Albert Pune. It's a shame.
It really was. He was
Yeah.
really cool. I mean, he created my favorite low-budget sword and sorcery movie with Sword and the Sorcerer.
Oh yeah.
And my favorite cyberpunk movie outside of Blade Runner.
Yes.
So,
The
that means a lot.
that's he really gave us a great amount of entertainment. And we were lucky to have him.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh God, I have a cat. I have a cat in front of me. He's climbing on me. Ow, claws. Okay,
Better give the kitty some lovin's.
I am. Hang on. Okay, buddy. Okay. Oh, okay. That's better. All right, I'm fine now. Where were we?
So, further questions. Were there any books that you really wanted to put out with Altarsorian that just never got the green light?
Well, originally, you probably know this. Firestorm was supposed to be 3 books.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it would have been nice if it had been. I remember how those came about. It was Mike wanted to shake up the cyberpunk world, and Chris Williams, who was one of the guys working there, he said, "I know how you can do that." And Mike was like, "What are you suggesting?" And Chris says, "Blow up the net," and that's what happened. I do think that a 3rd book would have been good, because that would have originally there's Firestorm, Stormfront, and Firestorm Shockwave, and then the 3rd book was going to be Firestorm Aftershocks.
Yep.
And
I remember seeing it advertised, so.
Right. Yeah. Okay. That's right. Yeah. And that book, I think, would have laid the groundwork for a a sequel, if you will, to Cyberpunk 2020 that we might have liked more than the V3 that we got.
I mean, it's always left like a kind of hole in the fans. Like, I've seen several different people try and write their own versions of Aftershocks. I've seen numerous posts being all like, well, what was the resolution to this?
Yeah.
And I mean, we got it loosely first with V3 and then with Red.
Yeah.
But it would have been very nice at the time for that book to have come out.
Well, I've also seen criticism of, and it's one of the examples of Cyberpunk, but there's other examples that these critics have pointed out to is, of destroying your world, right?
Yeah.
And they felt like, Mike, kind of, you had a good world and you blew it up. And how do you recover from blowing up a world? It's very hard to try to piece together what you had, what that perfect formula was that you were building
it
on.
left a lot of people's games in the lurch.
And
yeah,
how do you
to the point, I personally, no offense, but my campaigns just kind of ignore the third corporate war because I had other things going on.
Sure. I mean, I think that's totally legit. I thought it was an interesting idea for a framing device.
It was bold. I'll give it that. It was a bold, daring move.
I actually heard an aphorism very recently that I'd never heard before, but rings super true with me. And I'm going to have to paraphrase it because I don't remember the exact phrase. I don't know who to attribute it to. I think it was a science fiction author, a woman whose name escapes me at the moment. But
Ursula K. Le Guin?
Maybe, but I don't think it was her. But I could be wrong. The point is that the phrase is something along the lines of, I wish I had it written down, but the basic idea is war is the unimaginative way out.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
Right? Basically, if you're looking for something big and interesting to do, war seems like the thing to do, but it's actually not. And I think that's true. If you look at almost all of the Marvel Comics events that have happened over the past many decades, Civil War was huge and a great
game changer.
It was, as was Secret Wars. But both of those weren't really wars. They were a struggle between two members of the same group, namely, the superhero community.
Right. They were failures in diplomacy and that turned into skirmishes.
Yeah, an ideological clash, really. Whereas most of the events afterwards have been Skrulls invade, or symbiotes invade, or
it's been one giant fight scene after another, and it gets really old really quick.
And it's not that interesting. It's
right.
It's similarly with Lord of the Rings. If you read the books, these massive battle scenes that the movies are remembered for,
done in 2 paragraphs.
Yeah, they're just poof. Whereas in the movie, they're like, "Ooh, let's do this huge thing. Let's dwell on it for a while." And it's not really the best.
Honestly, I prefer the movies. I read the books every year growing up.
Nice.
But the truth is he'll spend pages describing a blade of grass on the field of Pelennor.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
You read these 3 giant novels, and you finally get to the end of the climactic battle, and it's over in 2 paragraphs. What the fuck?
Yeah. I read the books when I was younger as well, and I loved them. But I haven't revisited them in a long time. Watched the movies once, but I'm not that much of a fantasy guy. I think fantasy has very particular uses.
That's what that's what I loved about the actual Lord of the Rings films, is there was so many practical effects and like all the props were handmade and all that shit.
Yeah.
The Hobbit movies were just fucking awful.
Yeah, they were disappointing for sure.
Well,
And there still hasn't been an on-screen dragon as good as Dragon Slayer, 1981.
Amen. Yes. What was his name? Vermithrax?
Yep, Vermithrax was just the shit.
well, we're at our 2-hour mark, so I'm afraid
no.
we have to end.
Do we have to?
We have to end tonight. We do not have to end for future episodes. So we definitely love to have you back, Ben. We still have a few more questions that we'll ask. And
I'm sorry. I'm so
more.
freaking verbose that I just won't. I won't shut up.
You're not alone. Both me and Derek
right.
just ramble.
I mean, I'm over here suddenly I lost track of time completely, and now I'm suddenly very depressed.
Yeah. And just an FYI, Ben, like we've been doing a episode of 2 hours of which we review all the 2020 books, and we just ramble and we go off on various different topics when we start discussing things. So
excellent.
It's definitely an interesting conversation with me and Derek. But it's been a lovely discussion with you, getting some of the old stuff and understanding who Adam Smasher is and where he came from, which I think a lot of the community would love to hear about, and I would definitely love to hear more from you.
Absolutely. I mean, you, not to get too fanboy on you, but you have been a humongous inspiration and influence on me and my games and my writing, and like I just owe you a huge debt of gratitude for the works you put out and allowed me to further in my own games. So thank you, and thank you for being.
Hey, I am truly honored that you said that. It means a lot to me, and I really thank you. And I've had a blast talking to you guys, and I would be happy to come on again. I just, it means a tremendous amount to know that people, even now, a bajillion years on, have good feelings about this stuff that I did.
Yeah, your work has definitely had an impact, and
Most definitely.
heck, maybe in the future we'll get you and Ross on at the same time.
That would be awesome.
Or even more of the crew.
Now
that we know you're still in contact with Ackerman and Quentin, we definitely want to hit you up so we can get those guys talk about the other guys. So,
Sure, I can butter them up.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, the goal is to slowly go through all the people I'm in contact with. We're going to get Chris Hawkabout on here, I think, at some point.
Nice.
But yeah, this has definitely been a high point episode. So.
Awesome.
Well, thanks. It's certainly been a high point for me, and I'm honored and flattered to have been invited. And I would love to come back when you guys need me to jaw at you some more.
Awesome.
You are always welcome.
Oh,
So,
thanks.
if you want, we're going to do our closing segment. If you want to hang out and talk to us afterwards, that's fine. But we're just going to close out the show because 2 hours, I think, is a lot for a podcast / video blog type of thing. So we're just going to
Right on. Yeah.
I think Rob has something waiting in the wings.
Yes. So.
Okay.
So thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you again for Ben to join us. So you can check us out every first and third Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. Central Time, and 4 p.m. Pacific Time. GMT I think is midnight.
I guess.
Yeah, somewhere around there. So anyways.
I get confused. So,
Anyways,
yeah.
you can check me out. I'm at cybersmily.net. I have a site that has a bunch of utilities for Cyberpunk 2020, as well as a few utilities for Cyberpunk Red. I got to get back into the groove. Just been too busy running my own games as well as real life, but eventually I'll get back to them. I do have my own Discord server, Cybersmily Datafortress. I also hang out at Cybernation Uncensored Datafortress, or not Datafortress, Cybernation Uncensored Discord, as well as a bunch of other Discords that you can check out. I also occasionally troll the Reddit sites, so if you see Cybersmiley posts, that's probably me.
I am Wisdom 0000. You can check out my work at Datafortress2020. It is the largest, most complete resource for Cyberpunk 2020 material on the net. You can find me on Facebook at the groups Cyberpunk 2020 or Datafortress2020. I am sometimes on Discord. I lurk on Reddit under the name Datafortress2020. And yeah, you can always reach out to us. Give us your questions, comments, complaints, any ideas you have or anything you want to see in the future. Just let us know. We'd like to thank Cybernation Uncensored and Rob Mulligan for hosting us. We'd like to thank Benjamin Wright for joining us this evening. And we'd like to thank you for listening. Yeah.
Thank you. And stay tuned for the next episode. We're actually going to have James Hunt talk with us, talking about Cyberpunk Red. So, appreciate the love. Talk to you guys later.